everybody. Really glad to be with you. It's May Day. Happy Workers' Day. Happy International Workers' Day to you. By the time you see this, I think most of the events that are happening here in Toronto will be finished. But I'll tell you a little bit about what's planned for today anyways. And probably we'll see some of you out there at a big rally that's planned today, May Day, at City Hall at about 4 p.m. And following the rally at Nathan Phillips Square, people are going to be marching to Alexandra Park, which is in just downtown Toronto near Bathurst and Dundas. And at Alexandra Park, there's going to be food, there's going to be music, there's going to be lots of stuff for people to do. And I believe what's happening at around 9 o'clock, when events at Alexandra Park wind up, people will be moving to, members of Occupy Toronto will be taking the crowd to a secret new occupation site. So Occupy Toronto is getting going again this May Day, and in fact Occupy New York, Occupy Vancouver, Occupy movements around the world are launching new anti-austerity events and demonstrations and occupations right around the world. So May Day is certainly a big day for workers' rights, and it's a huge day to restart after the winter. The occupation protests, the decolonize protests, and the rallies and events that are going to try to bring, once again, really important attention of the media and of the public to the fight back against austerity. And of course that fight back against austerity is happening in a million different ways across Canada right now, particularly in Montreal, where students have been on strike. Hundreds of thousands of Montreal area students, university students, have been on strike for months. They are joined by many members of the public and faculty at those universities. And of course that movement has been ongoing with marches of hundreds of thousands of people. And this, their message too is about austerity and about the efforts of the Quebec government to impose huge increases in tuition fees on students who are the least able to pay those. And those students are fighting for the right for a public education in this country, and they're fighting for the right for to be able to be a post-secondary student, train to contribute to the economy, contribute to people's lives, and the ability to do that without coming out of post-secondary school with crushing amounts of debt. So it's really important for us to support them. But I wanted to talk to you today in the spirit of May Day here in Toronto about Bill C-31, and this is No One Is Illegal, and others call it the Refugee Exclusion Act. It is the government's big immigration bill that proposes stunning changes to what is already a very racist and a very punitive immigration act. And so I wanted to talk to you about that. May Day in Toronto for the last 7 years has been organized by a group called No One Is Illegal, which many of you are familiar with, of course. And you can find out more about No One Is Illegal at toronto.nooneisillegal.org, and we'll put that website up on the screen for you. This year, No One Is Illegal has joined with many other groups, including Occupy Toronto, to organize the May Day events. But still, for No One Is Illegal, this day is about the protection of migrant people's rights, and I want to talk with you about that in Bill C-31. May Day is also about the protection of migrant workers' rights, and we can, in Canada, under the Harper Conservatives, we have seen an enormous increase in the ability of corporations to bring in temporary migrant workers into the country to fill what are supposedly identified as skilled labor shortages. This move to do this has led to the fact that there are now more temporary migrant workers in Canada in various locations right across the country, in the agricultural, agribusiness of southern Ontario, in the oil fields in northern Alberta, and all across the country migrant workers are working. And these are people who are working with no guarantee of job protection. In Bill C-31, the government is allowing employers to pay migrant workers less, 15% less than Canadian-born people would make in those same jobs. So we've got legislated discrimination against migrant workers, and we know these migrant workers are largely people of color. Many people of color and are migrant people who come and work in our farms and oil fields, etc. We now have a situation in Canada where migrant workers outnumber the numbers of people who are brought in through regular immigration channels. So we can see that the government's intention at this time is to use people who are migrant workers as pools of cheap labor to ensure that corporate Canada's profits just continue to go up and up and up off the backs of very, very marginalized people. People who are only allowed to work in this country for short periods of time and then must return home. People who often fall out of status in this country when their work permits expire and are not replaced in a timely manner by the government. And this is happening to refugees and other immigrants right across this country. The other things that we should know about Bill C-31 that it does is it proposes scrapping health care coverage. There's a program called the Interim Federal Health Program, and that is being cut under this bill, and so that means that supplemental health coverage for many, many refugees is completely cut off. The government is proposing to deny basic health coverage to refugees who have been denied in their claim or who are from countries that are deemed safe. And we know that many of those countries who are deemed safe by our government are not friendly places to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and trans people. They are not safe spaces for many, many women trying to escape violence. They are not safe spaces for many, many other people. And so we know that this notion of denying the claims of people from what are considered to be safe countries, for example, we have North Koreans recently who are making refugee claims. No one would deny that North Korea is a very, very unsafe place for people, but because they escaped first to South Korea and then made their way to Canada from South Korea, those people are having their claims denied because South Korea is considered to be a safe country. When people are deported back to South Korea, they're in great fear that their whereabouts will be discovered by the North Korean government. They're very, very afraid that their identity will be exposed, leading to persecution of their families back home. So this is just one example of the government's wrong-headedness on this and this notion of safe countries. The other thing that the government that has done recently is we've seen deportations on the rise. They are proposing to imprison migrants, particularly refugee claimants. If they arrive in the country in groups, they want to imprison them for a year. They've already started doing that. They want to be able to deny permanent residency to people who are newly in relationships, either newly married or newly partnered with Canadians when they immigrate here or when they migrate here. They want to make that permanent residency conditional for the first 2 years, exposing many, many women to the possibility of extreme abuse in their relationships, either at the hands of their partner or at the hands of their partner's in-laws or their partner's parents and family. So we're seeing that Bill C-31 is proposing all sorts of things that are going to attack migrant rights and that are attacking migrant rights. We recently saw a very, very sad story. A woman named Veronica Castro, a woman who had made a refugee claim, a woman from Mexico, made a refugee claim here in Canada, was very, very concerned that she would be killed if she returned to Mexico or was forced to return to Mexico. Her claim was denied. She was deported to Mexico, and sadly we've seen that Veronica Castro was killed shortly after she arrived. This is blood on Canada's hands. It particularly is blood on the Minister of Immigration, or as he is known by many, the Minister of Deportation, Jason Kenney. This follows other high-profile cases like this, and I've talked to you before about a woman named Griselle met the same fate. returned to Mexico after 2 desperate tries to stay in this country, and that happened in 2008. So we have to continue to put the pressure on our government, and that's through our local MPs by writing and demonstrating to our local MPs, meeting with them. I encourage you to keep doing that. Keep writing to them to let them know what you think of Bill C-31, this punitive bill that rewards corporate Canada and corporations, of course, from outside of Canada, because the government has also quietly been dropping the levels of foreign ownership that are allowed in this country. They are dropping standards for migrant workers. They are putting into law, or proposing to put into law, standards which mean that those workers are legally exploited in this country. We have pay equity in this country, you know. We have laws that say that women in this country, Canadian-born women, and women who come to this country, successfully migrate and become permanent residents or citizens, those women are legally obliged to be paid the same amount as any man doing a job of that requires the same skills and is at the same level. So these pay equity laws, these laws that we hold dear, doesn't mean that it's always happening, but we have legislation that allows women to pursue equal pay for work of equal value. Now we have the government saying to people born outside of the country, people here under certain temporary conditions, that we ignore pay equity, ignore employment equity, ignore all of our standards of work. We're legally able to exploit people. This is a shame, and we need to speak out against this. The removal of health care coverage, the denial of people's basic human rights, this is a shame, and we need to speak out against this. And so I want to encourage you to keep in touch with No One Is Illegal in Toronto and No One Is Illegal events right across the country. Keep in touch with Occupy Toronto, who has worked together with No One Is Illegal to demand justice for migrant peoples. Occupy Toronto and No One Is Illegal also are demanding the right of Indigenous peoples, rights to their land, the settlement of claims, the importance of making sure Indigenous peoples in this country are given sovereignty, or are allowed to take sovereignty over their lands. And this May Day, what No One Is Illegal is saying is we must assert the freedom to move, the freedom to return, and the freedom to stay. The freedom to move because people are being displaced in their own countries and need to leave due to war, environmental collapse, and social and economic oppression. Much of that at the hands of Canadian companies, I want to remind you. And so people need to be able to move freely and are not pushed out of their homes. People need the freedom to return. They need to be able to return to their homes that are lost to them, and without being targeted. Freedom to stay. People, when they are in this country and they decide to stay in this country, need to be treated equitably. They need to be able to live without fear of being picked up by police and the Canada Border Services Agency, and they need to be able to stay in confidence and raise their children in confidence with equal rights to everyone else in this country. Also, we need to always not prosper by the theft in Indigenous lands, and we need a world without borders. And that's ultimately what we need. We are all citizens of the world. We all have a right to prosper and to support our families and to do what is best for ourselves and our families. And we need to know that Canada and the people of Canada support those rights for Indigenous peoples, for migrant peoples, for everyone. Thanks. Happy May Day.